Welcome students. Welcome to yet another session of online video lessons. I am Bangla Bharati, Associate Professor of English, Vivekananda Government Degree College, Vidyanagar, Hyderabad. Yesterday we have done Toasted English, that is UG second year, English in Use, a textbook for college students. This is for the second year students for SEM 3 and 4. In SEM 3, Unit 2, prose lesson, Toasted English, we have started. I spoke about R.K. Narayan, the writer, his background, the works he did, and we also saw certain documentary films about his museum. His house was converted into a museum, and that video I have shown you. I have also told you about the works of R.K. Narayan. Now we will move on to the text. I request that all of you have a copy of your textbook with you, and you also have your notebooks and pencils. So today we will look at Toasted English, the text. So get your notebook and a pencil. If you have your textbook with you, nothing like it. Let me share the PowerPoint with you. Be on the line, give me a minute. Let me make it full screen. Yes. I hope you can see it now. The prose Toasted English. As a pre-reading activity, yesterday we looked at the questions. What do you usually toast? What is toasting? What happens to a slice of bread when you toast it? How is toasting different from roasting? How many words can you think that rhyme with toast? What is proposing a toast? What does it mean when someone is called the toast of something, toast of some place, or like that? What does a Toastmaster do? What is Toastmasters Club? Let's look at these answers as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Now, what is a toast? According to the dictionary, toast is sliced bread which is browned on both the sides by heat. You can have in the market, you get bread toasters, the machines, you put bread slices into it, switch the button on, and the toast will pop up. That is browned or heated on both the sides. Food is prepared with toasted bread and toast. You eat it with omelette in between or a sandwich. For that, you make a toast. When toasted bread becomes brown on both sides in a toaster machine, that is what happens to a bread slice. Of late, microwave ovens are used for toasting. Toasting is different. Roasting is different. Roasting is when we fry or kind of heat the groundnuts or peanuts by exposing it to the dry heat without putting any oil in it. In the pan, you heat the pan and then you put nuts and you just fry them, dry fry. That is roasting. The color will change, the texture will change. Whereas toasting, on both the sides, it is heated by dry heat. That is toasting. That's the difference. And what are the other questions? How is toasting different from roasting? We have seen. How many words can you think that will rhyme with roast? If you have already thought of few words, fine. Otherwise, here's a list for you. Toast, boast, roast, most, host, coast, ghost, and post. These are the words that rhyme with toast. And the other questions? What is proposing a toast? Now, this is a Western concept, but proposing a toast is toast, raising a toast, or proposing a toast. These are formal expression of goodwill, appreciation, and this calls for group attention to an issue or a person in a public place or public setting, often followed by synchronous consumption of beverages. Like when a couple is newly married, they have very small get-together. And for the longevity of the newlywed couples and for the marriage to survive, they all raise a toast. So that is called raising a toast or proposing a toast. Suppose you're in a company, you're working, and your team has performed really well. Then the office calls for a party, and you're all given a toast. You propose the toast that for the well-being, for more successes to come to you. That is proposing a toast. A toast of some place or office. That means if somebody is a toast of a place, they are very popular, they have huge fan following, they are greatly admired. That's because they have done something very successful or very well. And the slang usage is one that is finished or done for, end of the matter. Okay, that is the toast. Their love affair was a toast, went into a toast. That means it's ended forever. Who is a Toastmaster? What does he do? Did you hear of Toastmasters Club? Now, this is a new concept. Words are new, but then concept is quite old. Actually, Toastmaster is typically charged with organizing a particular event or arranging the order of the speakers, introducing one or more of speakers, and keeping the event on schedule. Such meetings typically include civic events, service organization meetings, and banquets of various purposes. Like if you have planned for a wedding, of late this trend has picked up a lot even in our Telangana state. The entire marriage function, it is outsourced to a Toastmasters company. That there are registered Toastmasters clubs or event managers or wedding planners, right from the engagement ceremony to the bride and bridegroom, the barat, everything these people will take care of, including the reception of the guests, including all those little ceremonies. The event managers or the Toastmasters, they will plan everything, they will execute everything. So there is less of a burden, less of stress on the families. So Toastmaster is a person who will take care of the entire event. He will say, okay, you will speak first this event will happen, you will speak first, you will speak next, and they'll introduce. And it's a kind of what do you see, MCs, you have seen master of ceremonies, or a kind of meetings are conducted, event managers, event planners. That is similar kind of Toastmaster. In the Western European countries, you have Toastmasters clubs also. They are event managers, they plan everything. To be a Toastmaster, you should be a registered member of this particular club. In Hyderabad also, we have upcoming Toastmasters clubs or event manager clubs which are registered. So you can take a membership if you are good at organizing something. Now coming to toast. Actually, R.K. Narayan, as I told you in the introduction, he was a visiting professor in the American University for some time. When he visited an American restaurant, there somebody ordered, okay, English muffins, 2 English muffins, or toasted English, they are called. Give me 2 toasted Englishes, or pack 1 parcel, 1 to eat right now, 1 for takeaway. So what are these toasted English? Nothing but the English muffins, which are the typical kind of a cupcake. I've shown the pictures here. Right side is the typical one that is made at home. Left side, it's like a cupcake or the muffin which is sold in bakeries. You all must have tasted them at some point in your life. Okay, now the first paragraph. What does toasted English refer to in American restaurants? Why is English retained? What phase did Americans go through? Which other country went through it? What was one noticeable result of this toasting process? These are the 5 questions you have to answer. I'll show you the enlarged version of the text. I'll give you 3 minutes of time. Read it and find the answers. So I'll keep the time for you. Here it is the expanded version, and your time starts now. I hope you have got the answers. Once again, a quick look at the questions. What does toasted English refer to in American restaurants? Why is English retained? What phase did Americans go through? Which other country went through it? What was one noticeable result of toasting? So American restaurants, when they call for toasted English, what does it refer to? It refers to English muffins. Why was English retained? This was kind of sort of concession to their origin. What can be said of their language? The same is said of the language. So Americans too went through a phase of throwing out the British but retaining their language and letting it flourish on American soil. Which other country did that? Of course, India, our own country also did that. We were under the British rule for a long time. We have trained and we still follow the British English. Now, what happened to their language? The resultant language in America is different from its British counterpart. So what was one noticeable result of toasting? Answer is, one noticeable result of this toasting is that much of formalism surrounding the use of English has been abandoned. That was one noticeable result of toasting. Now we will move on to the next paragraph. The questions are, what did the Americans free the language from? What do we say ceremoniously on signboards? How are American signboards different? How is a similar situation described? And which country does the writer refer to? These are the 5 questions. I'll give an expanded or close-up version of the text and some 5 minutes for you to go through this text. I'll watch the time for you. Your time starts now. So you have some 3 more minutes left. Once again, the questions. What did the Americans free the language from? What do we say ceremoniously on signboards? How are American signboards different? How is a similar situation described and which country does the writer refer to? So what did they free the language from? In the first line, Americans have freed the language from the stifling tyranny of the passive voice. So they have freed their English language from passive voice, where we would say ceremoniously trespassing prohibited. That means nobody can enter that land without permission. Their signboards, as he noticed in parks of Berkeley, just say newly planted, don't walk, or absolutely no parking. So the signboards have very direct instructions. No parking, no trespassing, or don't walk. Whereas similar situation, like for example, when we take our municipal boards, heritage properties near Charminar or say Raymond's Tomb in Musaram Bagh, which is a heritage site, what is it written? If you look at the notice boards by Archaeological Survey of India or any other municipal board, you have the huge 20-line sentences. I'll show you that example here in other slide. Look, this is at Monuments of Mamallapuram. Just check the two or three paragraphs. How long it is. Archaeological Survey of India. And look at the monument protected for the Raymond's Tomb. This has been declared as an ancient monument and notified as a protected monument under the Andhra Pradesh Ancient and Historical Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1960. 7 of 1960 under section 31 of the act. Look at so many lines are given. Instead of saying don't spoil or don't cause problem, don't damage the property, you will be jailed. So in a similar situation, our authorities are likely to put 20-line inscription on a landscape to say under municipal act so and so, this area has been reserved, etc., etc., etc. And if a vehicle is parked there or somebody does something to the site there under so and so Motor Vehicles Act or under Archaeological Survey Act or some other act, etc., etc., what happens? You will be prosecuted or you will be jailed, you will be fined, whatever it is. Whereas on many American office doors, what was written? Do not enter. The traffic signs, how are they in America? How are they different? Only 3 colors: go, wait, stop. Just 3 for 3 colors. And in a Hollywood studio, R.K. Narayan mentions this. Mark Stevens, who is a very, very busy television personality, on his studio room, it said, keep out. Mark Stevens, keep out. But what R.K. Narayan doesn't understand is if Stevens doesn't want to be disturbed by visitors, why to put a name there? And he says, this is one of the minor mysteries that I am still yet to understand about this country. So toasting of English. Other question, how is a similar situation described? I told you about our municipal acts, and our country is what R.K. Narayan is referring to. He's referring to India. And then, how else is this toasting achieved? By other means. And he says, Americans have evolved certain basic keywords which may be used anywhere, anyhow, and they have a multi-purpose use. Same word with a preposition here and there can be used for many things. That is what he says. That's the question. So how else was toasting of English achieved? What did Americans evolve? Give examples. This is your next question. I'll give you 3 minutes to read it and answer the questions. I'll keep the time for you. Your time starts now. How else was toasting of English achieved? Here it is in the first paragraph. Toasting is achieved by other means. What are they? By evolving certain basic keywords. Examples? There are more examples in this slide. Read the entire slide and then you will understand. We have 3 more minutes to go through it. Two more minutes. Once again, a quick look at the questions. How else was toasting of English achieved? It was achieved through other means. They have evolved keywords which can be used in many places in multi-purpose ways. Example of this is check. It is labeled as the American national expression, while British use confines it to barely dictionary definitions. Americans use it anywhere. And it is being so devised that one may blindly utter it and still find that it is appropriate for the occasion. I will check means I'll find out, I'll investigate, I'll examine, I'll scrutinize, I'll verify, I'll probe. Your check means your ticket, token or a check or whatever you have to produce. Check room, you have it in usually cloak rooms in railway stations and airports, but check room means where you leave your possessions for a while. Check girl is one who will take care of your coat, umbrella, anything else that you may leave on the custody. Check-in, checking out is where when you take a hotel room for an accommodation, the check-in time, usually check-in and check-out times are usually for 12 hours or 24 hours. Check-in is the time when you enter, you book the room and you enter, take the possession. Checking out is when you vacate or when you move out. Chuck out, C-H-U-C-K, chuck out is like kind of get out kind of, okay, chuck it out. Chuck it out means, okay, leave it. That kind of a disgust. So it was rather disturbing. So first arrival into a hotel is checking in. Departure from that point is checking out. And there are many other examples is what R.K. Narayan says. So a closer look at it. Other examples. Here it comes. Checking out. I'll give you 2 more minutes. Just go through this for more examples. Your time starts now. Okay, what are the other words? Your time is up. One is they have created or devised words which can be used in for multiple occasions, or they could mean anything and anytime based on what the occasion or what the situation is. Like check in, check out, or CHUCK, chuck out. This is one example, and the other examples are, if you are not able to find a noun or a verb that you may safely and feel confident to utter, that is one situation. And the other one is, other example, fabulous. Fabulous is a word which is used in America very, very freely, and it has a broad meanings attached to it. So, like in Wisconsin, a lady declared, "Oh, those cats of mine are fabulous," meaning they were eccentric. The cats are run all over the place. They're not cute and disciplined, they are eccentric. So, for that sense of meaning, also, fabulous is the word that was used. And what else? Oh, so and so is so fabulous means it could be anything from a sincere compliment to an insult, and also displayed from mild form of charming lunacy. So fab, how is it? It's fab. So is it a compliment or is it a comment? Is it an insult? We don't know. But when this fab word came to India, it has opened a chain of handloom stores, Fab India, where all Indian ethnic items are displayed and sold. So for us, fab is a short form of the word fabulous, which means very brilliant. But in American situation, they have used these words to mean anything. This word could be used to insult, to something eccentric, be a mild compliment or a good compliment. It could mean anything. So this part of usage in the American society has charmed or impressed R.K. Narayan. Now we will look at the next one. What other examples does R.K. Narayan give regarding the usage of words anytime, anywhere, any context? So what are the words? Check in, check out, and then another CHUCK, check out. Then there is an example of fabulous, which can be used anytime, anywhere, in any context. And the place where English has a bazaar status, what does he mean? This comes in the next passage, next part of the text, where you will find answers to these questions. The place where English has a bazaar status, what does he mean? What did he notice in London buses? Time has come, he says. What does he suggest? What does he mean by that? So this is your text. Another example of words other than check in, check out, fabulous. There's another example here. Find the meaning. I'll give you 4 minutes to go through this paragraph. In the first paragraph, the upper part of the text, you find the other words. And the bazaar status question comes in the second one. So read the first part. 2 minutes time. Back to some questions again. What other examples does R.K. Narayan give regarding usage of words anytime, anywhere, any context? Okay is another word. Even we have seen how okay is widely used in India. It is the easiest sound that has emanated from human vocal cords. So okay is, it means you are giving respect. It's an answer to somebody says, okay means okay, I have done it, I have understood. It could mean yes, sir. Or if somebody says it with friends with lots of loving respect, it is okay, or yeah, yes, darling, or whatever. And Indians also have a lot of times they use okay like a filler word also. So most of the times you must have observed me when I speak, I say, did you understand? Okay, then we will move to the next slide. So okay is very commonly used in India. So without any further continuation of the sentence, and there are self-sufficient words which will stand by itself. Like if you say yes, did you understand? Yes, sir. Or yes, darling. Yes, dear. Instead of that, if you say yeah, that takes care of all the yeses or okays. So this is where another use, wherein a different words, the examples he gives, the okay is another example. Now, the other questions, the place where English has a bazaar status, what does he mean? What did he notice in London buses? Time has come, he says, what does he suggest? This is the second part of the passage. I'll present the expanded version of it. So read it carefully. Here it is. I'll give you 3 minutes to go through it. What do you mean by bazaar status? That means where it is spoken commonly everywhere by the majority of people, that is a bazaar status. So on a London bus, what did he notice? And time has come to, for what? Read it, 3 minutes time. Your time starts now. So refinements of usage in countries where English is a bazaar status are worth a study. On a London bus or in an Indian bus, when you have to take a ticket, what do you commonly hear the conductor saying? Banging it on the road, he says, ticket, 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 right? Same thing, you don't find it in London. Instead, what do you find? Read on. You will never hear a conductor say ticket, ticket. Instead, he comes to a passenger and he says, thank you. Once receiving the fare, he says, thank you, sir. So if a person comes to you on a London bus, the conductor comes to you and says, thank you, that means you have to take the ticket. When you give the fare, buy the ticket, he will say, thank you, sir. So number of thank you, sirs, if you count, or you count thank yous and thank you, sirs, and divide it by half, you will understand how many people have bought the tickets. That is what you observe in a London bus. You never hear the conductor shouting ticket, ticket, like in India. So which other country he is referring to? That is, he is referring to India. And in America, what else? In the European countries, what else? In a Western country, if a receptionist says, can I help you? It could mean many things. It could also mean, it could mean, have you any business here? Yes, then tell it. Or it may mean, sorry, you have come to a wrong place, you better move out of here. It could mean that. If somebody says, excuse me, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're asking for some information. In a bus you're traveling and somebody wants to get down. And if they say, excuse me, that means they could mean, sister, you are blocking my way, get out, move out. It could mean that, or you please stand aside. It could mean very rude things, or it could just mean a genuine request. It's all in the way it is used in a tone. So what do you mean by standing there gaping at the world while you block everybody's passage? Get out could be said by saying, excuse me. So in the tonality itself, you understand whether that person is trying to giving an order, or is disgusted, or is making a request. And if you go to an office and that you want to meet a chairperson, the person's busy secretary says, sorry, would you like to wait? That means you have to wait. So if you are understanding, if you are smart enough, you will understand that the way she said it in the tone, you will say, you have no choice, but you will say, okay, take a book or a paper, sit in the waiting lounge, look for a place and sit and wait. So to that question, don't say thanks. You have to say thank you, but then look for a chair, look for a place, and you might wait. Though deep inside you want to say, no, I don't want to wait. I have time, I have other appointments, I have another train to catch, I have another meeting. You can't say all that. So this is what you have to be smart enough and understand. And finally, R.K. Narayan says, time has come for us to consider seriously the question of Bharat brand of English. So what is this Bharat brand of English? Read it. Read this. I think I have made questions here. What time has come for us to consider, and what? Where has English confined itself to India? What does the writer suggest about the status of English in India? What is mongrelization? What does he mean by Swadeshi stamp, and what examples does he give? So this is the expanded version. Read it. I'll give you, because this kind of sums up the entire lesson of Toasted English, what the writer wants to say. I'll give you 2 minutes to go through it and find out the answers for time has come for us to consider what? Where has English confined itself to in India? What does the writer suggest about the status of English in India? What is mongrelization? What does he mean by Swadeshi stamp? What examples does he give? Go through it. 2 minutes. Last 1 minute. Once again, the questions. The time has come for us to consider what? Consider seriously the question of Bharat brand of English. Where has English confined itself to in India? English has comparatively confined existence in our country, mainly in the halls of learning justice, or administration. Where is English confined? In the halls of learning, that is in the colleges, in the universities, courtrooms, or administration. All the administrative offices, because everything there is done in English. So what does the writer suggest about the status? It is the time that English from the universities, classrooms, justice, courtrooms, administration, it has to come into the street, into the marketplace, under the banyan tree. And English must adopt the complexion of our life and assimilate it as an idiom. So, what is mongrelization? He's not suggesting to have a mongrelization of a language. Mongrelization is a kind of hybrid. You adopt it and you kind of use it in a different manner. So he says, I'm not suggesting the mongrelization of the language, but instead, or go to the kind of railway stations where we heard, where are you going, man? That kind of English where it is mongrelized. It shouldn't be that, but instead what it should be, it should have the Bharat brand of English. Mongrelization is cross-breeding, mixing breeds or varieties of uses indiscriminately without checking it properly. You kind of make a hybrid or mongrel kind of a thing. So mixing it by creating a very different kind which doesn't sound natural, that is mongrelization. So instead you should have, R.K. Narayan suggests that the Bharat brand of English must be developed, which will come to the street, into the marketplace, under the banyan tree. By being English of India, it should also assimilate the idiom of the local area, should adopt the complexion of our life, our needs, and it should also respect the grammar rules of the English, maintain the grammar, but still have a Swadeshi stamp on it. Like what examples does he give about the Swadeshi stamp? Madras handloom check shirt or a Tirupati doll. Madras handloom check shirt, they are very popular. The typical khadi check shirt with all smaller checks and bigger checks is a handloom shirt, which is very popular. That cloth, when you look at the design itself, you will know that it is from the Madras handloom. In the same way, the Tirupati dolls are the wooden dolls, which are plain wooden dolls of a man and a woman. Usually they are used in the wedding ceremonies of any Hindu wedding. You have them as a gift given to the newly wedded couple. So the Tirupati dolls are a part of our culture. They are part of our ceremonies and rituals, like the Kondapalli Bomma. You have the doll which shakes its head, right? That is a Kondapalli Bomma, which is very, very typical, ingrained into our culture. So English should also have this kind of a Swadeshi stamp where the words do not distort, grammar is not compromised, but then English is used for our benefit to suit our needs. That is the Bharat brand of English with a Swadeshi stamp. That's what R.K. Narayan is suggesting and recommending, and he says the time has come how Americans have adopted English language to suit their needs and develop an American English. Like that, Indians should also adopt, adapt, put a Bharat brand of English, have a Swadeshi stamp on it, and develop an Indian English. This is where your prose text ends. And the questions, R.K. Narayan refers to the muffins in the beginning of the essay. Does he say anything more about this? No. Only in the beginning of the essay to talk about how toasted English means the muffins. Nowhere else does he speak about these muffins or food items again. What, according to the Narayan, are features of American English? We have to say they have dropped formal speech, that is, passive voice is gone, everything is active voice. The rules and regulations or directions are straightforward, straight to the point instructions. According to Narayan, what are the differences in the use of English among America, Britain, and India. In Britain, they are very formal. In a London bus, they are very formal, systematic, and kind of disciplined. Whereas in America, they have evolved their own words and vocabulary and keywords which can be used in any context. And in India, the status of English is confined to universities, administration, and justice. These are the basic three major differences. What's Narayan's attitude towards American English? He finds it amusing. He says there are certain things which I need to still understand about this country and the way they use the language. How and when, according to Narayan, will a Bharat brand of English emerge in India? When our English moves out of the universities, learning halls, administration, and law and comes into the streets, into every day-to-day life, into the bazaars, under the banyan tree, that's when we have our Bharat brand of English. What, according to Narayan, should be the character of Bharat brand of English? How will it acquire the character? It will be when we use the idiom of the local language, our Swadeshi stamp, without losing our idiom, without losing our context, in the same way, without compromising with the original grammar or the rules of English language. Like that, we can develop a Swadeshi Bharat brand of English. So other post-reading activities, like anywhere, anyhow, I mean, what are the lists that he gives? One is okay. And what are the other words which are used anywhere? Check in, check out, okay, fabulous. And the London bus, what do you hear? You don't hear the conductor shouting ticket, ticket. Instead, he says thank you. And when he gives a ticket, he says thank you, sir. So number of thank yous and thank you, sirs. By counting that, you will know how many people have bought the ticket. So after this lesson now, for you to understand, what do you think of English and the way it is used in India? This is a comprehension question or an essay type of question which will be asked if you are prepared to it. So any of the essay writing competitions, this could be a common topic, a topic where you have to write an essay or have a group discussion about the Indian English. How is it? How to develop it? And how to create this Bharat brand of English. So students, with this, we come to the end of the prose lesson, Toasted English Part 2 of UG's third semester, second unit, prose lesson 2. And if you have any questions, you can drop your comments in the comment box. Leave your comments, I'll get back to you. Do subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon so that you will receive notifications whenever there is a new video uploaded. I hope you have understood Toasted English. Keep on practicing and make a note of different kinds of Indianized way of usage of English. Make a list. When the college reopens, we'll have a nice discussion of it. So stay home, stay safe. This is going to be a friendship week, first week of August. Is a friendships week. Wish you all a happy Friendships Day and a friendship week. Stay home, stay safe, and take care. See you till we meet in the next class. Thank you so much.